The small blue pill in my hand was my last hope. At first, I looked at it for a long time. I was scared. I couldn't make up my mind, but in the end, I closed my eyes and swallowed it. The effect came almost instantly. I never thought I'd get to this point, but not sleeping for days on end is a slow hell. No, even worse. You just lie in the dark, staring at the ceiling and waiting for your body to give up, and it doesn't. Every night turns into torture. I've tried everything I could, and now I've resorted to these pills, so new that even their name gives nothing away. At first, when this horrible, exhausting insomnia started, I tried everything everyone recommended: relaxing teas, aroma lamps, meditation. In the first month, I would lie and listen to recordings of ocean sounds, nature sounds, God knows what else. I bought some silly special pillow and a heavy blanket. Music. Then came the serious methods, sleeping pills. But with them, everything was even worse. My body would shut down, but my head seemed to stay on. I would lie there like I was in a cast with my eyes closed, but from the inside, a feeling gnawed at me that I wasn't really sleeping. Several months passed like this. Life was going downhill. Work turned into a mechanical survival. Coffee, phone, reports. I started to look like a ghost. My boss first pretended not to notice anything, but then he called me into his office and said that either I take care of myself or he'd have to look for another employee. At home, it also became unbearable. Paulina, my girlfriend, first tried to be supportive, but the longer it went on, the more often I caught her heavy gaze on me. She endured it for 3 months. After another night when I was pacing around the apartment, she packed her things. "Pasha, I can't do this anymore. You've become different, and I just can't be with you. I'm sorry." I don't blame her. She was right. What could I offer her? My fixated, exhausted mind. I was living in a fog. Every night started with the hope that maybe, just maybe, everything would get better today. Miracles happen, right? It all ended in emptiness. I felt like I was slowly losing touch with reality. I found myself having strange thoughts more and more often. Sometimes it seemed like I just couldn't take it anymore. So, when I learned about a new sleep clinic, I immediately made an appointment. Honestly, I didn't even read their ad. I just saw the name, something like Center for Somnology and Neuropsychology. A colleague at work gave me a brochure and said it was expensive, but it seemed effective. The appointment cost me half a month's salary, but I went anyway. The line in the hallway stretched on endlessly. Half asleep, pale people, just like me, were waiting for their turn. There was a tension in the air, mixed with sadness. Someone was staring into space. Someone was scrolling through their phone. They looked like ordinary people, but in each of them, you could see that familiar fatigue that eats away at you. When I finally got into the office, I was met by a doctor in a white coat, about 40 years old, with a calm, direct gaze and a confident manner. He offered me a seat and started asking questions. I told him everything, not missing a single detail, about my attempts, the pills, the sleepless nights. He listened carefully, sometimes nodding. His gaze showed understanding, as if he had heard something similar many times before. "We can try one method," he said. "We have experimental drugs, a new generation developed specifically for complex cases. The results are good, but the side effects haven't been fully studied. You must sign a waiver and understand that all possible risks are your responsibility." Well, do you want to try? I sat across from him, feeling my fingers involuntarily clench into a fist. Of course I was scared. The word experimental sounded creepy. But on the other hand, did I have a choice? Yes, I said resolutely, and with that short, harmless word, I signed my own sentence. The first night with the pill was salvation. I slept like a log. For the first time in many months, I woke up without feeling like I'd been run over by a train. My head was clear. My body was light. The world became brighter, as if someone had turned up the contrast. I felt like a human, not a shadow. In the morning, for the first time in a long time, I smiled at myself in the mirror. The doctor was right. The drug worked. At the office, everyone was surprised. I did everything easily and with pleasure, although normally, work felt like hard labor. Only a week had passed, but I felt my life changing. It was a real miracle. However, my joy was short-lived. A few days after I started taking the drug, those damned dreams began. The first dream burst into my consciousness suddenly, without the usual gradual immersion. I was standing in an unfamiliar stairwell, damp, dark, unwelcoming. The light bulb on the ceiling flickered, casting short flashes on the peeling paint. I was standing on the landing and couldn't understand how I got there. The familiar yet strange outlines of the stairwell cut into my consciousness, leaving an unpleasant feeling. A floor below, a door slammed. It must have been the front door. The sound of footsteps, muffled, uneven. I looked up. A woman about 30 with long brown hair, in a ponytail. In her hands, 2 large bags. They groaned plaintively, as if they were about to tear. "Good evening," I said in a strange voice. She turned around, looked at me with a slight surprise, then gave a strained smile, the way people often do with neighbors whose names they don't remember. "Hello," she said briefly, and walked past me. I took a step forward. "Heavy, isn't it?" "Her bags." She stopped. Her face softened. "A little. The elevator's broken again, and now I have to carry all this to the 5th floor. Can I help?" I offered. She was about to nod, but suddenly she looked down somewhere and recoiled sharply. "No, thank you. I'll manage," she replied quickly. A note of caution appeared in her voice. She turned away and hurried upstairs. I followed her. The woman quickened her pace. She was almost running, constantly looking back over her shoulder. "Which apartment are you from?" she asked. Her tone became sharp. "Listen, are you sure you live here?" she said more loudly. "She's scared," I realized. And not just scared. She's terrified. But why? I stepped closer, and then her face changed. Her eyebrows lifted, her eyes widened, the corners of her lips trembled. Terror cut through her every movement. "Don't come any closer," she whispered, backing away to her door. "Hey, what's wrong?" I started, but the woman didn't listen. She was fumbling, trying to put the key in the keyhole, but her hands were shaking. The keys fell, loudly hitting the floor. She tried to scream, but I roughly grabbed her and covered her mouth with my hand. "Quiet, quiet, quiet. I didn't mean any harm." I really didn't. But at the same time, I felt something dark boiling inside me. I raised my hand, and at that moment, a piercing ringing engulfed me. The sound was real, tangible. The alarm clock. I was lying in my bed, in my room. Cold sweat was running down my temples. What was that? I wondered, as I tried to calm my breathing. My heart was pounding in my chest. The hair on my arms stood on end. I sat in bed for a long time, trying to steady my breathing, but the sensations from the dream didn't let go. The woman's face contorted in fear, the smell of dampness. It all felt frighteningly real. All day, I tried to convince myself that it was just a dream. But things like this happen, right? Processing some impressions. Nothing unusual. But for some reason, anxiety gnawed at me from the inside. Just a dream. Don't overthink it, I kept telling myself. Besides, despite everything, I felt great. Fresh, well-rested, ready to move mountains. I couldn't give up this feeling, this new life, because of some random dream. The next night, I took the pill again and fell asleep. The dream came quickly. I was standing in silence, trees all around. The air was damp and cool, smelling of earth and cotton candy. This is our park, it dawned on me. I knew it. My friends and I often hung out in this park as teenagers. I still lived very close to it. A heavy object lay in my palm. The cold iron pleasantly stung my skin. I lowered my gaze. Music. An axe. A small camping axe with a shiny, perfectly sharpened blade. The metal eagerly drank in the rare glimmers of moonlight. The handle fit perfectly in my hand, as if the tool had been created specifically for me. Damn, I muttered. I tried to unclench my fingers, but they didn't obey. My hand held the axe firmly with some alien confidence. My body in the dream moved forward on its own, resolutely, confidently. I walked along the winding path. Music. A figure appeared in the dim light. A short jacket, sneakers, jeans, headphones on her head. Even from that distance, I could hear the music coming from them. My pace slowed but didn't stop. My breathing quickened. "Hey!" I wanted to yell, but only silence came out. The woman turned her head as if she had felt my gaze. My body sped up. I stepped toward her. At that moment, the woman saw the axe in my hand. Her eyes widened. "What do you want?" I saw her backing away, taking the headphones off her ears. No, wait. I really wanted to stop, to say that this was some kind of mistake. But my body kept moving. The axe blade flashed. A muffled scream rang out. The woman turned and ran, but I, or rather my body, was faster. We were running down the narrow path. Branches scratched my arms and face. I saw her shoulders, her back. I felt my legs tirelessly catching up with the victim. At some point, she stumbled and fell. I stopped, standing over her. The woman lifted her head. Horror was frozen in her green eyes. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Music. On the chopping block, a hand raised the axe. In the moonlight, the blade shone like fire. At that moment, I became truly terrified. I didn't want to do this, but the hand swung. My muscles tensed, and the axe flew down. Before the blow, I heard a desperate scream, and then everything disappeared. I woke up as if a shot had been fired. My hands were shaking. I couldn't breathe. The room was dark. I felt cold sweat sticking to my skin. Damn it, what was that? It's just a dream. Just a dream, I kept telling myself, looking at my trembling fingers. But the feeling of a heavy weight in my palm didn't go away. It seemed I was still holding the axe in that very hand. In the kitchen, I drank a glass of water in one gulp and lit a cigarette. I usually never smoke in the morning, but now... It's just a dream, I told myself, looking at the barely visible smoke rising to the ceiling. Or is it? I paced around the apartment like a wind-up toy, checking the locks, although no one could have gotten in. I drew the curtains. It was as if someone was watching me. Everything inside was on fire with anxiety. I had to do something, distract myself somehow, but my thoughts kept returning to those dreams again and again. In the end, I decided to take a walk, clear my head a bit, and literally forced myself to go outside. At the entrance, the usual old lady neighbors were sitting and discussing the latest news. And it was right in the park, in our park. God forgive us, what's happening? They say he chopped her up with a little axe, can you imagine? A young girl, only 30 years old. My chest felt tight. No, this doesn't happen. It's a coincidence, just a coincidence. I tried to find a logical explanation, but my thoughts were jumbled. Dreams couldn't be reality. It was absurd, ridiculous. But what if it wasn't a side effect, but something else? What if I wasn't just seeing all this? Enough, I said out loud, as if I could command myself to stop thinking. The old women looked at me suspiciously. I cursed and hurried back home, where I continued to go crazy. Should I stop taking the pills? Yes, that's probably what I should do. But then I remembered what it was like not to sleep for weeks, to stare at the ceiling, to lose touch with reality, to howl from helplessness. After all, I wasn't becoming a killer because of some dreams, right? I needed to talk to the doctor, tell him everything. Maybe it really was a side effect. They didn't warn me about this, but who knows? While I was doubting, the next night came. This time, I was standing in the hallway of a regular apartment. The wallpaper pattern, a mirror with a chipped edge. From the hallway, there was a view into the room. I cautiously lowered my gaze. The same axe, shiny, sharp, was in my hand. Damn, no, not this, I thought. But my legs were already carrying me into the room on their own. I stepped inside. There was a woman there, very similar to the other two women from my dreams. The same long brown hair in a ponytail, green eyes. My hand squeezed the axe tighter. I took a step, and the floorboards creaked under my feet. The woman turned sharply, meeting my gaze. "Who are you? What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's okay. It won't hurt," I said. Or was it me? My lips spoke the words, but I didn't feel them. I took a step closer. The woman jumped up and screamed, her eyes filled with panic. I raised the axe. My hand moved confidently, with cold calculation. The woman tried to push me away, but her strength was nothing. At that moment, I noticed a tattoo on my wrist, a black spiral, coiling into infinity. Hypnotic, mesmerizing. The woman hit me with something heavy, and I swayed, but only smiled wider. I felt it. Music, the pleasure, the satisfaction, a steely self-satisfaction, a flash of light, an iron will. The axe plunged into the flesh. Blood, a scream. The axe flew into the air again. I wanted to scream, to stop, to run away, and then I woke up. I jumped out of bed with a wild scream, covered in cold sweat. My chest was tight. My heart was racing. I was rushing around the room until I realized that it was just my bedroom. But the relief didn't come. The pounding in my ears blocked everything but one image, the tattoo on the wrist, a black spiral, like the night itself, pulling me into infinity. Why did it stick so clearly in my mind? I went to the kitchen, turned on the water, and drank greedily straight from the tap. My hands were shaking so much that a glass seemed like a bad idea. It's just a side effect, a dream, nothing more, I tried to convince myself. It's not real. But the axe, the tears, the screams, all of it felt so real that I could physically feel the cold metal in my hand and the smell of blood in the air. I firmly decided that I had to go to the doctor. They had to know something. They prescribed the pills after all. I put on my jacket and ran out into the street. A gray winter day, dirty snow under my feet. The landscape matched my state perfectly. However, on the way, I relaxed a bit and even felt a faint glimmer of hope. Surely they could fix everything, adjust the dosage, and the nightmares would stop. Surely that's what would happen. But when I got to the clinic, I froze. A sign on the door read, "For rent, office space available." There was no sign, no indication that a medical center had recently been here, as if it had never existed. I stood in a daze, not knowing what to do. Panic was rising inside me. Maybe I got the address wrong, I thought, and frantically tried to remember the way. No, everything was correct. The empty office mocked me in silence. When I got home, I mechanically turned on the TV, flipping through channels, and stumbled upon a crime news report. A journalist was standing at an apartment building entrance, her face serious, her voice calm and detached. Last night, a brutal murder occurred in this building. A woman was found with multiple wounds. The murder weapon was an axe. The investigation suggests that the criminal entered the apartment through an unlocked door. I felt the blood in my veins freeze. On the screen, they showed a photo of the victim. It was her, the same woman from my dream. My head spun. The same scream rang in my ears, and her terrified face flashed before my eyes again. How is this possible? I must be going crazy. To hell with it. I have to stop with these pills, with these dreams, with all this killing and horror. The pills flew into the trash can, one after another. Enough, enough. Insomnia is better than this. The first night without the pills was long. I tossed and turned, remembering everything that had happened. Insomnia returned, but with a sense of relief. A week passed. I was back to being that person who doesn't sleep at night, but somehow, miraculously, was still staying afloat. Every morning greeted me with heavy eyes, a dull head, and emptiness inside. But this was better than seeing blood. Only one detail gave me no peace. That very tattoo. It haunted me even when I was awake. I had a persistent feeling that I had seen it somewhere before. It was too familiar, too real, to be just a figment of my imagination. But there was no answer, and the longer I tried to find one, the more the black spiral pulled me in. Music. The town continued to live its usual life, but it's in moments like these that things happen that turn everything upside down. I was returning home from work. On the way, I stopped at the supermarket for groceries, and there, at the checkout, Tiki, I saw him. Andre. I recognized his face immediately, although 10 years had passed since we last met. I immediately remembered his sarcastic laugh in class and his constant A's in physical education. He was always such a leader, a little arrogant, but somehow attractive. However, he was never lucky with girls. Maybe it was because of the scar that stretched from the corner of his mouth all the way to his ear. According to rumors, Andre's mother left him that scar when he was very young. She drank a lot and was generally a little crazy. In short, Andre's family was, as they say now, dysfunctional, and that's putting it mildly. Andre noticed me too. He smiled and nodded. Pashka? No way. He quickly came over and held out his hand. I automatically squeezed his palm, and at that moment, I saw it. On Andre's wrist, under the thin strap of an old watch, a tattoo was visible. Music, the vortex, the same one I had seen in my dream. Now I understood why the tattoo had looked so familiar and given me no peace. I had indeed seen it, and not just once. I felt my legs give way. The image from the dream flashed before my eyes. A camping axe, the killer's hand, screams. Andre, I could only stammer. Yeah. Didn't you recognize me? He smiled good-naturedly, seeming not to notice my shock. How many years, Pashka? About 10, I guess. I answered with difficulty, swallowing the lump in my throat. We walked side by side, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Andre got the tattoo back in 10th grade. We were terribly jealous of him back then. It was the height of coolness. But now I couldn't shake the thought that it meant something more than just a drawing. We started talking. He asked about how I was living, what I was doing, and remembered old school jokes. I tried to answer, but one thought was pounding in my head. It's him. Could it really be him? Listen, Andre, I asked suddenly, trying to sound innocent. Do you remember those camping trips they took us on after school? Of course. How could I forget? Especially the one where we almost burned down the forest at night. He laughed. Do you still go camping? I asked, looking up as if out of curiosity. Sometimes, but not as often. You know, work, family, all that. He spoke calmly, but I caught something strange in his tone. Or did I imagine it? Do you remember we used to skip classes and go to the park? I continued. Have you been there lately? Not in a long time. I don't really have the time, and it's not on my way. What about you? Have you been there recently? I shrugged, avoiding his gaze. All this time, it seemed I was looking at a murderer, but Andre continued to talk and joke. His calmness was contagious. By the time we parted ways, I had almost convinced myself that it was just a coincidence. However, on the way home, I felt like I was being followed. I felt someone's gaze on me, even though I couldn't see anyone. When I closed the front door, I felt completely drained. In the evening, insomnia came over me again. Lying in bed, I thought about our conversation, about the tattoo. No, it can't be. It's Andre. We've known each other since childhood. And my stupid AMs don't prove anything. It's just my subconscious working under the influence of the pills, nothing more. But the anxiety didn't go away. My head was splitting. I couldn't fall asleep again. And then I made up my mind. I took out the only pill I hadn't thrown away and had hidden away for an emergency. I swallowed it and finally closed my eyes. And that's when the most terrifying thing began. A dark wave, without warning, without an exit. I was walking down a street, unusually familiar. Every step echoed as if the city had suddenly gone blind and deaf. Not a soul around, only me, an axe in my hand, and the intrusive sound of footsteps on the well-trodden snow, the sound of a car passing in the distance, a faint, muffled sound, as if mocking me with a greeting. And then, a realization came over me. I knew this street. I knew these lanterns that seemed to be crying with a hazy light. And when a house with peeling paint appeared ahead, I knew that this was my home. My body didn't hesitate. It moved forward confidently. A strange excitement, mixed with anxiety, was boiling inside me. I felt it. Dense, sticky, like a black fog. Inside the stairwell, silence greeted me. Every step under my feet groaned, as if trying to warn me. The third floor, apartment 47. My apartment. I didn't need the key. I had a lockpick. I didn't even know how to use it, but my fingers moved deftly, as if they had been practicing this all their life. The door opened quietly, too quietly. I took a step forward. It was my hallway. On the doorstep, the bags of groceries that I hadn't put in the refrigerator yet. In the living room, the TV was mumbling. But my legs were carrying me to the bedroom, to where I was supposed to be sleeping now. I stepped inside and froze. A person was indeed lying on the bed. Me. Something got stuck in my throat. My consciousness choked. It was impossible. Unbelievable. But I really saw myself sleeping. My eyes were darting under my eyelids, as if I was fighting with something in my sleep that I couldn't defeat. My forehead was wet with sweat. The pillow was crumpled. I could hear my own breathing. I saw my chest slowly rise and fall. A hand raised the axe. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't listen. In the blade of the axe, a face was reflected. A smile, wide, terrifying, not mine. "We've had a strange meeting," I said in Andre's voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't plan this, but I have to play it safe." I felt someone else's hands squeeze the axe tighter, how the body, not mine, prepared to strike. Fear and rage mixed and thundered inside me, but I couldn't do anything. I could only watch as the blade came closer to my own neck, unable to even close my eyes. "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" I screamed silently to myself. Despair turned into cold, numb rage. Why? Why did all this happen? I just wanted to get some sleep. What did I do to deserve this? This is all utter nonsense. I have to fight. And then something changed. I felt a power inside me. It was a cold wave, rolling in, hitting me. "He's killing me." A thought flashed. And then, stronger and stronger. I concentrated, desperately grabbing this feeling like a lifeline. And then I understood. I wasn't just watching. I was feeling. I felt how the tendons were tensing, how the muscles were trembling. This body didn't belong to me, but I could feel it. I latched onto this knowledge like a drowning man. If I can feel, then I can move. A thought flashed, and in the same second, I tensed the alien hand. It froze. The blade stopped in midair. The maniac froze. He noticed. I felt his eyes widen in horror, how his muscles twitched, but didn't obey. "What the?" He exhaled, and his voice trembled. His body began to twitch convulsively. He tried to take control, twitching his arms and legs, tensing his neck. But I held him like a vice. His alien will fought, slipped, and hit a barrier that I had erected. Slowly, through hellish effort, I forced the hand to turn around. The blade of the axe was pointed at him. I could hear his frantic breathing. I felt drops of sweat running down his face. The maniac whimpered like an animal. He trembled and howled, but his muscles didn't listen to him. His fingers, clasped on the handle, were shaking, and I slowly, inch by inch, lifted the axe higher. "No," he whispered. It was the only word he managed to say. I raised the axe high above his head, feeling the alien body shake under my will, and I struck. The blade entered the skull with a deafening crack. Blood gushed out in a fountain, covering my face, my hands, the floor. Brain matter splattered like a crumpled piece of clay, and the body twitched and went limp. I felt the alien pain. Its echo beat against my consciousness, tearing it from the inside. He fell to his knees. His eyes rolled back, and a final gasp came from his mouth. I felt the body collapse to the floor, how the blood spread around, soaking into the wooden parquet. Everything fell silent. And then I woke up. The nightlight was flickering, reflecting in a puddle of blood on the floor. A few feet from the bed, Andre was lying. His face was contorted with horror. His eyes were glazed over. An axe was sticking out of his skull. Everything around was covered in blood. The tattoo on his wrist caught my eye. A black vortex, as if it was pulling in all the blood, all the horror that I had to experience. I looked at his dead body, feeling the world crumble. Was it a dream? Was it reality? I couldn't understand. Later, the police determined that Andre was a serial killer. The police compared fingerprints at his home and conducted a search, where they found photos and locks of hair from the victims that this lunatic had cut and kept. 11 women in total, and there could have been even more. I never told anyone about my dreams, and strangely, since then, I haven't had insomnia. I sleep soundly. Only, sometimes I have strange dreams, but they're just dreams, right? If you liked the story, you can support the channel with a like and a subscription. See you soon.